interrupted an important experiment in progress.
I am Chucky.
Pennywise the ants.
You won't get you, Barbara.
I want to play a game.
Hello everyone, Joshua Myers here, and welcome back to my 31 Days of Halloween review series, and today I'm going to be reviewing Hatchet from 2007.
What started out as the ultimate party weekend
Mardi Gras!
turned into
Do you do a haunted swamp tour?
the ultimate nightmare. Because in these backwoods, if you lose your way, the party's over. Bring Home the movie critics are calling one of this year's top 10 films, amongst the greatest slasher films of all time.
We're all gonna die.
Terror goes old school. Hatchet. Own the version 2 Intense for theaters on DVD December 18th.
Hatchet stars Joel David Moore, Tamara Feldman, Dean Richmond, Perry Shawn, and is directed by Adam Green. Plot of Hatchet is that when a group of New Orleans tourists takes a haunted swamp tour, they are slammed face first into the local legend of the deformed madman Victor Crowley. What follows is a psycho spree of seat-jumping scares, eye-popping nudity, skull-splitting mayhem, and beyond. Now, before I get started on this review, I would like to say I have already reviewed Hatchet before on my main channel. I watched it after I first viewed the movie, and I've seen the movie since, and knowing that too, just like some of the other reviews I redid, it is mostly because I wanted to redo them, get more of my in-depth thoughts on them, especially the films that I love, and a lot of these films I do love that I'm covering this month. And yeah, this is no different. This is actually one that I actually really love, and I just wanted to redo it, do the review, get more in-depth thoughts on the movie, and also to update it to my current style. Plus, again, like I said in the previous reviews, back then I didn't have the man cave here. I didn't. So yeah, new setting, new, kind of upgraded look and feel, and more in-depth thoughts. Honestly, for me, I will say this, just like on the DVD box says, it is old school American horror. That's what it is. It's basically Adam Green's attempt of going back and recapturing that of classic 80s slasher movie, you know? This would fit very well with the likes of films like the original Friday the 13th, like just the Friday the 13th franchise in general. It's no coincidence of that because Adam Green managed to get Kane Hodder to portray the deformed serial killer of Victor Crowley. Who, I'm honestly surprised Victor Crowley isn't like much more of a modern horror icon. I think he is a great serial killer. He has a great backstory, tragic backstory. Just like a lot of serial killers in 80s horror films. You know, like the backstory of basically this deformed child who was basically kept hidden from the rest of the world, and the only person he had with him to ever look up to or, you know, to ever be loved by was his father. Which, by the way, his father in the film is played also by Kane Hodder in a non-makeup role, and actually could play with some emotion, and I thought Kane Hodder did great in that role. Especially for what was needed. And again, Kane Hodder does a really great job as Victor Crowley. What can you say? It's Kane Hodder. He played Jason for crying out loud. So, I mean, how much better can you get than to bring someone in to play your slasher villain that's meant to be kind of invoke the slasher villains of like the 80s, you know? And that's, you know, so it's like who better than to get the actor who played, like, one of the main actors who played Jason, knowing that too, the fan favorite actor. By the way, I met Kane Hodder, so I met Jason, I met Victor Crowley, Really nice guy. I highly recommend if you're at a convention or something, go meet him. I didn't got his autograph or photo op. I wish I did. Who knows? Maybe if I go to another one of these, and if I meet him again, I will for sure get an autograph and photo op. And speaking of actors too, all the other actors do a pretty good job as well. You got, especially for the kind of movie that this is. This is not some high art type of film, and I think Adam Green knew that. He wanted to go back and do kind of like a, 80s style, sleazy slasher movie, and that's what he did, and that's what he achieved. And, I think if you were to ask him personally, like, okay, do you consider Hatchet to be high art? He would say, hell no. Because, I mean, if you were to compare something like Hatchet to, let's say, okay, let's say in horror realm, something like those art house movies like The Lighthouse or Midsummer, all that different stuff. No, it's not going to be like that. By the way, still have yet to see Midsummer, by the way. I've seen The Lighthouse, pretty good film. But, yeah, it's not going to be on the level of films like The Lighthouse, Midsummer, or Hereditary, which I haven't seen Hereditary yet. You get what you get with Hatchet. If you're looking for just kind of old school slasher movie, not much of an actual plot aside from what it gives you. They don't go too in depth with the characters, really. I mean, they go in depth enough to where you could care for some of them you want to see die. There are a couple characters that are either so annoying or so, are basically assholes that you want to see die. And then there's some you kind of want to root for, actually. So, again, just like the old school 80s slasher. Also, too, the pacing's pretty good, too. It's not too long, it's not too short, it's just kind of the right runtime and pacing that a film like this needs, and it achieved that. I will say, it is interesting to have a slasher film take place in a swamp. I haven't seen that, really. I don't know, is there... let me know in the comments section down below. Are there any slasher films that have took place in a swamp that came out before Hatchet? Hatchet came out in 2007, so... I don't know, anytime between the late 70s to the mid-2000s have there been a slasher movie that takes place strictly in a swamp. I also haven't seen a slasher film that took place in New Orleans, which is an interesting setting for a slasher, I will admit. So, they do that pretty well. Also, too, it was pretty cool to see cameos from Robert Englund, who appears in the opening of the film, and that was fun. And also, it was cool to see cameos from Tony Todd, aka Candyman. He was also in the Final Destination films, and also, too, he was in Star Trek, stuff like that. And, again, it was great to see both Robert Englund and Tony Todd in the same movie. Oh, and Kane Hodder is Victor Crowley. I mean, come on. You get Freddy, Jason, Candyman, all in the same movie, just not playing those slasher roles. The only one you could say is kind of playing the same slasher role is Kane Hodder's Victor Crowley, because, let's be honest, it's basically a modern retelling of Jason Voorhees. That's what it is. And again, I think that's intentional. I will say, there are some gnarly kills. If you're in for the kills, there are some gnarly ones. There's this one where Victor Crowley, and this is probably my favorite kill, personally, where Victor Crowley runs after an old woman after seeing her husband get slaughtered by him. And then he just takes her mouth and just basically is like, just splits it open. And you see the tongue flopping around and all that. That's an awesome kill. In fact, when I first watched the film, some of the gore in that did caught me by surprise. I didn't expect it to be that gory. And, but that was a cool kill. That had some good practical effects there. In fact, that's another thing I'll give credit to Adam Green on, is that he mostly utilized practical effects. In fact, I think that's all he used. And, He could so easily use digital effects, but he did not. In fact, I think it was because of two reasons. One, the low budget. B, I think he was intentionally wanting to use practical effects because that's what 80s slasher films back in the day, like, that's what slasher films back in the 80s and, you know, just in general used was practical effects. And I'm willing to bet if he used digital effects, it would not look as good. Now, my negatives are mostly technical, and I don't blame Adam Green for this. I think he was working on a low budget, so... And plus, I've seen interviews and, you know, just other stuff with Adam Green. He does run a YouTube channel and that, and I think he seems like a nice guy. You know, I wouldn't mind meeting him, actually. But I will admit, some things technically isn't really that great. For one... the gore effects could be a bit choppy in some places, no pun intended. Maybe pun intended. Was it pun intended? I'll let you guys decide that. But overall, I think just some of the gore effects could have been done better. I think the problem was that he got a little too over the top with the gore. Therefore, couldn't really, like... And that's kind of the give and take you have to do with a low budget. It's like, okay, what do? Do you go, like, either full on, like, bloodless, you know? Kind of like something like the original Halloween, you know? So that, yeah, it's basically... And that's what I do. I mostly go bloodless with my films. Because, I don't think I could do too much gore effects like that. But I do think there are ways that you could make brutal kills with no gore, and I've shown that in my Halloween short film, Halloween the Kills of Michael Myers, which I'm hoping gets released this October. If not, it'll have to be delayed till next October. And that's what it's starting to look like. It may be delayed till next October, which I'm sorry about that, guys. It disappoints me as well, but certain things happen, so... But hopefully by next year you'll get a better product than it would have been if I had released it this year. And again, I'm still holding out a little bit of hope that it could come out this year. But if not, I got a teaser made to kind of, you know, basically announce the delay of the film. But anyway, so you can either go bloodless like the original Halloween if you're on a low budget, or if you just don't care about how the gore looks, you could go all over the top. And that's what Adam Green did. And I think he did that intentionally. But still, it could be a bit distracting sometimes. Another thing that's very distracting is the swamp itself. The location itself. It looks like it was filmed on a sound stage. I'm not sure if a lot of it was really done in a real swamp, personally. If it was, then it must have been that he used way too much studio lighting that it kind of gives off the effect that, oh yeah, this is a sound, like on a sound stage or something. And kind of takes out the immersion of the film a bit for me. If he worked on those things, I think those things would not be such a problem. And again, there's only really a few characters you can actually root for, which again, it's intentional. I get it, it's intentional. And they're good characters, I think. I mean, they're not going to win any awards for best characters or anything like that at the Oscars, you know? Or even best acting, but I think they do. Adam Green did a decent job with what he had to work with the characters in that regard, and with the actors too. That's really it with my negatives per se. So I guess we'll move on to my rating. So with that said, I'm going to give Hatchet. I'd say I give it a solid 4 out of 5 stars. Here's the thing: for what Adam Green set out to do, he achieved it. He achieved doing a kind of old school, low budget slasher film that, you know, basically invoked the style of 80s slasher movies and that, and he achieved that, especially like he wanted to have extreme excess of nudity, blood and guts, and he achieved that. He achieved that with Hatchet, and for what he achieved, it is pretty good. Are there better films out there, even better slasher films out there? Yes, I would argue. And I think he would even argue that there is. I mean, Hatchet was more of a homage to those slasher films that he probably loved, you know, like Friday the 13th and stuff like that. So, this should not be a knock at him. I'm not trying to knock at Adam Green. I did really enjoy the film, and in fact, it's one of my favorite modern slashers in that regard. You don't see too much of actual modern slashers that aren't of, like, at least original modern slashers, like, I think the closest you got was The Strangers Pray at Night with that as well. Because The Strangers Pray at Night was much more of a slasher than its original film, which the original film was a home invasion style movie. So yeah, Hatchet. I personally really like the film. Again, does it have its flaws? Sure. I think some of those flaws were intentional. And yeah, overall, I highly recommend you check out Hatchet if you have not. Especially if you want kind of old school, you know, low budget slasher film with a lot of gore, a lot of nudity. So that's it for this review. Tell me in the comments below what you guys think of Hatchet. Do you love it? Do you hate it? Are you somewhere in between? And also, how would Hatchet compare to the old school 80s slasher films that this is trying to homage? And do you think it did a good job with homaging those old school classic 80s slasher films? Let me know in the comments below. Also, if you like this video, be sure you hit the like button. Also, too, if you're new to this channel, be sure to hit the subscribe button. I'd very much appreciate that. I'm trying to grow this channel as much as I could, and I love doing this stuff. I would be doing this even if I wasn't making any money in it. I'm not making any money, you know, but I would be doing it even if I didn't, because I'm passionate about horror. I'm passionate about films in general, and yeah, I love horror movies. Horror movies are my bread and butter. If you guys like what I do, be sure to click those buttons and check out all my other videos. And I got more on the way for this month, so yeah, if you've so far been enjoying what I've been doing with the 31 Days Halloween review series this year, continue on watching them. I got some interesting stuff coming up. So that's it for this video. Thank you guys for watching, and see you next time.